Welcome to In Life. Today we are dissecting a critical moment in modern geopolitics, analyzing a situation that is unfolding with severe global implications. It is Monday, April 20th, and the ongoing standoff between the United States and Iran has reached an absolute boiling point. In just the last 24 hours, the Arabian Sea, positioned right near the incredibly strategic Strait of Hormuz, became the theater for a dramatic military confrontation. The United States Navy took decisive action, seizing an Iranian-flagged cargo ship known as the motor vessel Tuska. This was not a chance encounter on the open water. The Tuska, a massive beast of a ship measuring nearly 900 feet in length, was steaming directly toward the Bandar Abbas area. This deliberate trajectory placed the vessel in clear and direct violation of an established U.S. naval blockade, a blockade that the Iranian government is vehemently denouncing as an act of piracy. The confrontation played out with agonizing, deliberate intensity over a full 6 hours. The USS Spruance, an Arleigh Burke-class guided missile destroyer renowned for its formidable power, intercepted the massive cargo ship. Throughout this standoff, the Spruance issued repeated clear warnings to the crew of the Tuska, essentially giving them every possible chance in the book to turn around and avoid catastrophe. However, the Iranian crew completely ignored every single call and continued pushing forward. The radio communications capture the chilling reality and professionalism of the moment. U.S. forces explicitly directed the crew to evacuate, stating, "Vacate your engine room." They warned the vessel that they were prepared to subject them to disabling fire. It was a stark and highly specific ultimatum. Get out of the engine room, serving as almost a polite gesture before unleashing total devastation on that specific part of the ship. When the Tuska continued to ignore the warnings, the Spruance took decisive action. Utilizing its 5-inch gun, the destroyer fired radar-guided precision rounds directly into the cargo ship's engine room. The shots were incredibly accurate, blowing a hole straight through the designated target and instantly leaving the massive vessel dead in the water. This surgical strike successfully achieved its objective, disabling the ship's propulsion without turning the entire 900-foot vessel into a catastrophic fireball. With the Tuska fully mobilized, the operation immediately shifted from the sea to the sky. Marines from the 31st Marine Expeditionary Unit sprang into action. Launching from the amphibious assault ship USS Tripoli, 2 separate helicopter assault teams closed in on the disabled vessel. In what can only be described as a textbook boarding operation, the Marines fast-roped down onto the deck of the Tuska and secured full control of the ship. These specialized raider teams execute these maneuvers with absolute certainty, showcasing exactly why they are considered the best in the world at making things happen in no uncertain terms. The assault force was heavily equipped, utilizing night vision goggles and rifles, demonstrating a formidable and highly trained presence that you simply do not want to be on the business end of. The entire operation wrapped up flawlessly like clockwork, with the cargo now under inspection and 0 casualties reported on either side. This success was not due to luck. It was the direct result of massive amounts of training, superior sensors, and the absolute willingness to back up their warnings with actual steel. The response from the international community and key figures was instantaneous. U.S. Central Command quickly released dramatic, fast-paced video footage of the operation. President Donald Trump took to Truth Social to commend the action, stating that the Tuska, which weighs nearly as much as an aircraft carrier, failed in its attempt to bypass the naval blockade. He emphasized that the ship was already under U.S. Treasury sanctions due to a prior history of illegal activity and confirmed that the U.S. now has full custody of the vessel to inspect its cargo. On the other side of the conflict, the reaction from Iran was fast, fiery, and entirely predictable. They immediately began crying foul, labeling the entire operation as straight-up armed piracy and maritime armed robbery. They claimed it was a blatant violation of the ceasefire. Various elements of the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, including the Khatam al-Anbiya Central Command and the Foreign Ministry, joined the chorus of intense condemnation. They declared that Iranian forces will soon respond and retaliate against this interdiction. Furthermore, Iran is using this seizure as justification to completely rule out upcoming ceasefire talks in Pakistan. They are accusing the United States of using diplomacy as nothing more than a smokescreen to hide further aggression, indicating a deliberate pivot away from any negotiated deals. Officials tied to the Supreme Leader's circle are predicting new and bitter defeats for both the U.S. and Israel. They are even threatening to expand the conflict geographically by targeting the Bab al-Mandab Strait near Saudi Arabia, which is a key alternative route used to bypass the Strait of Hormuz. Iran's threats to light up these choke points or go after Aramco facilities highlight a fascinating shift in global energy dynamics that the IRGC may not fully grasp. Iran questions why the U.S. isn't more concerned about the disruption in the Strait of Hormuz. The stark reality is that the U.S. currently relies very little, if at all, on oil from that specific strait. In a massive shift, Europe is now sending dozens of empty oil tankers across the Atlantic to purchase sweet crude oil from North Dakota, Texas, and Alaska. This shift means the blockade is actually functioning as good business for the United States, a reality that seems to have genuinely shocked the IRGC. Despite this economic reality, the IRGC continues its classic tough talk, attempting to frame themselves as the innocent victims of highway robbery at sea. They portray themselves as stand-up guys, conveniently ignoring their long history of propping up proxy armies around the world. However, the reality of the Tusk's seizure exposes the stark limits of what the IRGC can actually accomplish on the water today. Their loud threats of ultimate payback against the U.S. mask a swagger that is beginning to look increasingly soft in the middle. In a bizarre twist of state-sponsored propaganda, the IRGC even released an animated Lego movie attempting to spin the narrative of the confrontation. The video accuses the U.S. Navy of playing dirty games and uses bizarre terms like U.S. Epstein regime to distract the public from the reality of their naval failure. The animation depicts a fictionalized scenario where the U.S. seized the ship but was ultimately forced to retire under fire, a narrative completely divorced from the factual events of the boarding. It boldly claims that Iran don't play and that the U.S. has forgotten who they are dealing with. This propaganda conveniently ignores the historical fact that 160 Iranian naval vessels currently rest at the bottom of the ocean from previous conflicts. The video insists their defense is sacred, highlighting that the IRGC's primary concern is protecting the regime itself and its inner circle, even if it means slaughtering 40,000 of their own people. It's a clear attempt to control the domestic narrative while facing humiliation on the high seas. Let's pull back and look at the sheer scale of the military machinery enforcing this blockade every single day. The interception likely took place in the open waters where the U.S. Navy maintains its hard line. The U.S. sea and air power on display rests on proven, highly versatile platforms. Beyond the heavily armed Arleigh Burke-class destroyers like the Spruance handling the surface fight, the blockade is layered with multiple domains of overwhelming warfare. Beneath the surface, submarines lurk quietly in the depths, ready to deny the waters to the enemy and support any necessary escalation. Above the fleet, fighter jets provide crucial top cover and air support. F/A-18 Super Hornets launch from carrier decks, bringing unmatched air-to-air and strike capabilities to the theater. F-15E Strike Eagles stand ready to deliver depth precision firepower. And iconic A-10 Warthogs provide close air support. Armed with their massive 30mm guns, they can loiter on station for hours, ready to engage any fast attack craft that might attempt to threaten the operation. This immense firepower is guided by persistent intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance over the entire operational area. Everything from massive MQ-4 Global Hawk drones down to smaller first-person view drones keep an unblinking eye on the situation. The Marine Expeditionary Unit remains actively on the deck, doing what they do best by enforcing the blockade. It is this seamless integration, surface ships, submarines, fighter jets overhead, Marines on the deck, and unmanned eyes in the sky that ensures operations proceed like a textbook exercise rather than turning into a mess. Everything works together, layered, professional, and overwhelming whenever and exactly where it needs to be done. This operation is a prime example of strategic 4D chess. The ultimate goal is to enforce the blockade hard enough to force real compliance at the negotiating table, all without jumping straight into an all-out war. It sends the absolute clearest signal to Iran yet that violations have immediate tangible costs and they will not be able to generate revenue from these seized oil tankers. This was the first actual seizure since the blockade kicked off, proving that the Trump administration is unapologetic about enforcement and that there are real teeth behind the strategy. This stands in stark contrast to previous decades where administrations were accused of simply paying the regime off while they built massive stocks of ballistic missiles and drones. Now, should the conflict kick back off, this robust blockade infrastructure could transition extremely quickly into executing direct strikes on Iran itself. American sea power just proved once again why it is considered the gold standard of the world. When you team that surface capability up with the integrated air power from the Navy, the Marines, and the Air Force, you possess the true ability to pressure the Iranian regime and potentially form cracks within its structure. Yet driven by what appears to be a deeply nihilistic approach, the regime seems entirely willing to go down with the ship, walking away from any talks that could have led to a peace deal. The tables have definitively turned. The coming hours and days are absolutely critical, and it is highly likely we will see further escalation and things getting hotter before they ever cool back off. The real question remaining is how Iran plays this and whether they actually have any viable cards left worth betting on. Thank you for watching this deep dive on In Life. What do you think happens from here? I would love to hear your analysis and what you think Iran will do next.